Okay, so let's get started. Here we're looking at some key points to consider when selecting a payment processor that will give you the necessary tools for success. There are many credit card providers out there, and they're not all the same. To start with, pick a sales specialist that you are confident is reliable, knows his solutions, and is customer service oriented. So what we see here is some important things to look for and ask about. Of course, you want to know about rates. Rates are very important, and everyone wants to get the lowest possible rate. But there are other things to pay attention to when questioning a potential payment provider. Equally important is whether or not your provider has rental and seasonal programs, good customer service, strong connectivity, and this can be particularly important at remote fairgrounds, a setup suited to you, and finally, good reporting of the financial transactions. Okay, let's talk about rates. We all want the best possible rate. What you want to focus on is getting a very competitive rate without any gotchas. What are the gotchas to watch out for? We'll get into this more in the next webinar, but as an overview, most providers have several ways of billing merchants. What very few people understand is that rewards and corporate cards cost more to take. This is driven by Visa and MasterCard because they charge more for these. And in today's world, the majority of credit cards have rewards. There are also lots of corporate cards out there. Some providers take the increased expense of a rewards card or a corporate card and mark it up again as a surcharge. Since these are not easy to decipher, some providers mark it up quite a bit. And it can be difficult to see what's happening on your merchant statement. At the end, it can cost as much as 5 or 6% to take one of these cards. For the most part, if you avoid models that have excessive downgrades or surcharges or look closely at what those rates are, you'll be okay. We'll get into how to look for this next week when we do our in-depth pricing. Ideally, what you want to ask for is known as cost plus pricing. With this model, you get what Visa and MasterCard charge to everyone, which is cost, plus a small markup from your payment provider. This can also sometimes be called pass-through pricing because your provider is passing through cost to you plus a small markup. A bundled rate is what you get with a provider like Square. Bundled rates were designed for very tiny micro merchants and are good when the processing volume is low or erratic. But for a fair situation or where you're doing more than $4,000 or $5,000 a month in volume, you will actually pay more with a bundled rate than with the cost plus model, even though it looks simpler. Also, beware of contracts that lock you in for 3 years or have cancellation fees, because if for any reason you are not satisfied with the service, contracts that have these can be costly to get out of. Okay, let's talk about equipment. Gone are the days when you had limited choices for equipment. In today's world, there are lots of equipment options. You have choices of many manufacturers and providers, and they will all work pretty well. So the first thing you want to look at is what type of equipment suits you best. You can use a card swipe with a mobile phone, a simple credit card machine, a tablet-based point-of-sale system, also called a POS, or a virtual terminal, which is a software application basically running on a laptop. If you want to automate your ticketing and do online ticketing, that requires additional scanners, but these are easy to acquire. A phone and a mobile card reader is the cheapest, but is often not ideal for a fair situation where you need a most robust solution. Things get spilled or moved around, calls come in, you can't process cards while you're on the phone, and other things can interfere with your processing. So it's not highly recommended. However, a mobile phone and card reader can work in a box office situation where you're handling overflow. It's really more suited to the pizza delivery guy or the tow truck than to a fair. Okay, credit card terminals. Credit card terminals are the most prevalent thing that you're going to see out there. They're the cheapest and easiest to use, and they're also available to rent. The wireless ones are portable, and they are made to be used in a business setting, and they work well under hot weather conditions. A point-of-sale system is a great solution if you need to track inventory or get management reporting from your terminal, and to account for both cash and credit cards. These usually have to be purchased, and they require a bit of setup of your inventory items and learning the cloud-based reporting to get going. But once you're set up, the advantage to these is that there's no late-night tie-outs between cash and credit cards for reports to turn into auditors the next day. It's all available in the cloud and can be emailed directly to the fair and can be integrated directly to QuickBooks Online. And for fairs, it's great because you get analysis of your different registers and concession stands out on the fairgrounds. Ticketing systems require a bit more thought and setup, particularly if you want to set up online ticket sales ahead of the fair. But they are well worth it in terms of increasing revenue and marketing to people who purchase online, as we went over in the last webinar. Whatever way you decide to go, pick a system that meets your needs, has good connectivity, and is easy to set up and use. Okay, let's talk about rental and seasonal programs. For fairs and service members, having a rental strategy in terms of payments can be very beneficial and actually quite critical. Check with the provider you are considering to see if they offer rental and seasonal programs. There are pros and cons to both owning and renting equipment. The pros of owning equipment are, if you're going to use the equipment for several years, owning the terminal becomes very attractive in terms of cost and convenience. You simply turn the service on and off as you need it. No need to do a new application or other paperwork. Also, you can use it off-season for other things. The cons of owning is the equipment sits idle when it's not in use. And in today's world, where technology moves quickly, equipment can become outdated or break down, causing you to have to reinvest in new equipment. The pros of renting are that it fills your short-term needs, and you only pay for it in the months that you need it. And next year, you can once again rent the latest equipment. The cons of renting is that there's usually a setup and monthly cost. For many fairs, a mix is what they settle on, buying some permanent equipment for year-round needs and renting additional equipment for fair or other peak times. If you choose to purchase equipment, make sure and ask for a seasonal program where you can turn off processing for your off-season. In this way, you save on monthly fees that are charged regardless of usage. Leasing is also an option, but is not much used today. With the cost of equipment having gone down so much in recent years, if you lease, you end up paying for the equipment several times over. Most payment providers don't even offer this option anymore. Customer service is crucial for fairs where a large portion of your yearly sales are done in a very short amount of time, and much of it after normal business hours. Here are some questions you can ask of a potential provider to test their customer service levels. Can you give me your customer service number? What is the average wait time for customer service? Do you have after-hours support? Actually call the number they give you. It can tell you quite a lot about what will happen after you sign up. For example, do you get right through, or are there a number of buttons you have to push to even get into the queue? How long is the wait time in the queue? How willing to help is the customer service rep you talk to, even if you explain you were just trying to get through to sales? How knowledgeable is the customer service rep in terms of options available for you? All of these things can tell you what you're likely to run into when you need to use customer service in a live situation. So customer service can be critical for your business. Problems with equipment during peak business hours can hurt your revenue. Picking up a lost batch can be easy or a nightmare, depending on how good the customer service is that you're dealing with. Meeting your PCI requirements easily due to good customer service can save your business from a breach. So while rate is important, it's not always about the cheaper rate. Good customer service may cost more upfront, but save you money in buckets at the back end. All right, let's talk about connectivity. Connectivity is more of an issue for service providers than for fares, who usually have their own Wi-Fi. However, it can also be an issue for smaller fares who don't have this. Remote areas have the biggest challenge on connectivity. When you evaluate a payment provider, check and see what options they have. The choices you have are, number one, cell service. In fares, using a cell service that has connectivities on the fairgrounds is critical. Verizon is king in terms of reliable connectivity, but AT&T is also good. Make sure the equipment being supplied supports the cell service you want if you are relying on cell service. Number two, Wi-Fi. Many fares have and offer Wi-Fi as an add-on package. These are pretty reliable, but if you are a service member, inquire as to bandwidth and make sure that available bandwidth during peak hours can support your needs. Number three, some credit card providers offer special equipment that lets you create your own mobile wireless network, and you can run several wireless devices from them. In some cases, this can be the best solution to ensure you have reliable connectivity. In a pinch, you can fall back to what is called store and forward, where transactions are stored on your local machine and you send them through when you have connectivity again. While this can work when all else fails, be aware that you are not alerted if a bad credit card runs until after you send in the batch. And if a batch is lost from the local machine, it is gone and cannot be recovered. All right, let's talk about setup and reporting. The process of getting set up involves filling out an application, choosing the equipment you want to use, and then getting connected with a processor, which is the business that does the actual processing of your transaction and sends that money to your bank account. The provider you select will guide you through the setup process. You could do the setup in a variety of ways. If you have more than one terminal, you can put them all under the same identity in the business called a MID or MID, which stands for Merchant Identification Number. Or you can have separate MIDs. There are advantages to each. With a single MID, you only pay one set of monthly fees. With multiple MIDs, you get separate reporting and separate deposits on each MID, and they can be easily separated out in your bank account, or you can even choose different bank accounts if you wish. Once you're set up, the money from credit cards you take will be posted into your bank account in 48 hours. There are options available to get the money within 24 hours. This is called accelerated funding. It costs a bit more monthly, but for those who need it in terms of cash flow, it is available. Fees will be deducted from your bank account at the end of the month, and a statement is also provided with a breakdown of these. Some processors offer online statements as well as paper, and some offer only that option, so decide what you want and let your provider know. If you need to look up transactions or get other breakdowns during or after the month or for earlier periods of time, there is usually a cloud-based reporting site that allows you to do that. If that is important to you, you can often schedule a demo of that ahead of time to make sure it meets your needs. In summary, there are various things you can evaluate in a credit card provider. Some may be more important to your fare or business, others less so, but they all play a role in the credit card picture and are areas where you can make informed choices if you know that they are there and what to ask about. So what we've tried to do here is give you a picture of the various pieces that are part of the payments pictures so that you can decide what is most important to you and act in your fare's best interest. Okay, that wraps it up. I'm going to give a minute for people to type in questions, any questions that people want to ask.